In the year 2032, humanity's long-held dream of setting foot on Mars became a reality. Two vessels descended through the thin Martian atmosphere, their engines kicking up great plumes of rust-colored dust as they approached their landing site near the base of Olympus Mons. The mission was a joint effort between the Global Space Initiative, GSI, an international coalition of space agencies, and Helios Industries, a pioneering private space exploration company. Their destination was an anomaly, an immense square formation that had baffled scientists since its discovery by orbital scans years prior. Unlike the natural landscapes of Mars, this structure was unnervingly precise, its edges sharper than anything shaped by wind or erosion. As the Prometheus, GSI's lander, settled onto the surface, Commander Elias Carter felt the familiar jolt of touchdown and released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Moments later, the Solaris, Helios Industries' cutting-edge transport, made its descent a few hundred meters away. Dr. Ava Moreau, the team's lead archaeologist, had barely waited for the engines to power down before pressing her gloved hands against the viewport. Beneath their ships, where the force of their landing had displaced the dust, patterns, markings became visible. She turned to Carter, her voice barely a whisper. "That's artificial." Carter glanced at her, then back at the ground. "Then we've just made the biggest discovery in human history." The teams deployed quickly, setting up preliminary research stations and carefully beginning excavation work. The more dust and rock they cleared, the clearer the structure's purpose became. It was not a ruin, scattered by time. It was intact, a sealed ancient construct that had been waiting beneath the sands for longer than humanity had existed. Their instruments soon detected something even more unexpected, an energy signature emanating from within. It was faint, but undeniable. Something inside was still active. As they worked, the ground trembled beneath them. Then, with a deep mechanical groan, a section of the structure's surface began to shift. A massive stone slab, covered in carvings, slid away, revealing a dark passageway leading deep underground. The teams exchanged uncertain glances before Carter activated his suit's headlamp. "Let's go find out what's down there." Descending into the depths, they found themselves inside a vast underground chamber, lined with towering pillars and walls covered in intricate reliefs. The carvings depicted landscapes that could not be Mars as it was now, oceans, rivers, cities with spires stretching into the sky. The people carved into the stone were tall, with elongated skulls and eyes that seemed too large for their faces. Moreau traced a gloved hand over the nearest mural. This is a record of their civilization." She turned back to the others, her voice filled with awe. Mars wasn't always barren. The chamber led to an even larger space, one that took their breath away. Before them stretched an entire city, preserved beneath the surface, its buildings standing untouched by time. The architecture was unlike anything on Earth, its materials gleaming faintly under their lights as though they still carried traces of energy. Streets, bridges, towering obelisks, an entire metropolis hidden beneath the Martian surface. Then, at the center of it all, they saw the figure. It sat upon an ornate throne, its body still and statuesque. It was humanoid, draped in a metallic-looking material that had not decayed with time. A crown-like band encircled its elongated skull. Though its eyes were closed, there was an undeniable presence about it. Moreau hesitated but stepped forward. The air in the chamber felt heavier the closer she got. She reached out a tentative hand, then froze as a vibration pulsed through the air. A low hum reverberated through the room, and the figure's eyes, once dark, suddenly ignited with a deep, luminous glow. The air seemed to shudder as a voice, ancient and resonant, filled the chamber, not in sound but in thought. "You have awakened the last keeper of the first world." The team stumbled back, but Moreau held her ground. Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely steady. The figure's head tilted slightly, as if considering them. "I am Zalzir," it said, "the last custodian of what was." Carter found his voice. What happened here? Zalzir's glowing gaze swept across them. "Mars was once a world of life, as your Earth is now. My people, the Aethari, built wonders that stretched across the skies. But time is an unyielding force. Our world changed. The rivers dried, the winds became cruel, and so we made a choice." Moreau furrowed her brow. "You went underground." Zalzir inclined his head. Yes, we sought refuge beneath the surface, preserving what we could. Many left, seeking new homes beyond the stars. Others chose to sleep, waiting for the day the world might be reborn. His gaze locked onto them. But you have come in their place. Tell me, does the blue world still thrive? For a moment, none of them spoke, grasping the weight of what had just been revealed. Then, softly, Moreau answered, yes. A silence stretched between them before Zalzir slowly rose from his throne. Though he moved with deliberate slowness, there was no frailty in him. He studied them with something akin to fascination. You are the next chapter, he said, the new inheritors of the great expanse. He turned toward the city beyond them, and there is much I must show you. Over the next days, Zalzir guided them through the lost city, revealing knowledge beyond anything humanity had ever conceived. He showed them preserved archives of the Aethari's scientific advancements, technology that operated beyond the limitations of human understanding. He spoke of the ancient atmospheric stabilizers they had once used, machines capable of sustaining ecosystems. If they could be restored, they might change the very nature of Mars itself. The implications were staggering. Mars was not merely a place for human exploration. It could be terraformed, revived. The technology of the Aethari, left waiting for millions of years, could be the key to transforming the Red Planet into a living world once more. As they stood upon an ancient balcony overlooking the vast, silent city, Carter exhaled, his mind racing. This isn't just history, he said. This is the future. Moreau turned to Zalzir. What will you do now? The ancient being regarded her for a long moment before looking toward the city, where countless more of his kind remained in their eternal slumber. Perhaps, he said, it is time to wake the others. Above them, Mars remained the barren world humanity had always known. But beneath its surface, something long thought lost had been found again. And for the first time in eons, the silent planet stirred with the whispers of life. In the days following their encounter with Zalzir, the astronauts of the Global Space Initiative and Helios Industries found themselves at the precipice of a new era. What had begun as a mission of exploration had transformed into something far greater. The rediscovery of an ancient civilization and the revelation that Mars was not as lifeless as humanity had once believed. Deep within the underground city, Zalzir moved with a silent grace, leading them through corridors untouched by time. The structures towered over them, their dark surfaces embedded with an unknown mineral that shimmered faintly under their suit lights. Every wall was inscribed with glyphs depicting the rise and fall of the Aethari, the beings who had once ruled this world. Helios Industries' lead scientist, Dr. Eric Zhao, was particularly fascinated by the technology still humming within the ruins. These systems are ancient, but they're not dead, he murmured, running a scanner along a pillar that pulsed ever so faintly with energy. If we can understand this, we might be able to reawaken their infrastructure. Zalzir observed them carefully, his luminous eyes betraying no emotion. Our world fell into silence, he said, but it was not meant to remain so. Ava Moreau turned to him. You said others of your kind still sleep, she said. How many? Zalzir motioned toward a vast structure at the heart of the city. Many thousands remain in stasis, preserved beneath the layers of dust and time. The Aethari knew that one day life would return to this world. He turned his glowing gaze toward the humans before him. We did not expect it to be you. Carter exchanged a glance with Moreau. What happens if we wake them? Zalzir was silent for a long moment. Then, in a voice filled with quiet weight, he said, That is for them to decide. The discovery of the stasis chambers set off a firestorm of debate among the team. The implications of reviving an ancient alien species were staggering. Were the Aethari prepared for a world that had moved on without them? Would they welcome humanity or see them as intruders? As the days stretched into weeks, a decision was made. Carefully, under Zalzir's guidance, they began studying the mechanisms of the stasis chambers. The Aethari technology was unlike anything they had encountered, organic and mechanical at once, responding to touch with a sentience that suggested it had never truly gone dormant. The first revival was slow. The chamber pulsed with a low, resonant hum as the translucent surface melted away, revealing a figure within. The being's skin was darkened with age, its breathing shallow as it stirred for the first time in untold millennia. Then its eyes flickered open, glowing with the same otherworldly light as Zalzir's. For a moment, no one moved. Then, in a voice weak but unmistakably alive, the Aethari being whispered a word in its forgotten tongue. Zalzir stepped forward, placing a hand upon its shoulder. "Awaken, Siraten. The long night has ended." One by one, the sleepers of Mars began to stir. The city that had stood in silence for ages was beginning to breathe again. And on the surface, in the cold expanse of the Martian desert, the first green shoots of something long thought impossible began to break through the soil. As the Aethari awakened, the once silent city of Mars became a place of life once more. The collaboration between humans and the ancient civilization deepened, with scientists and engineers working alongside Zalzir and his people to understand their technology. The greatest breakthrough came when the atmospheric stabilizers, immense machines buried beneath the surface, were successfully reactivated. For the first time in millions of years, the Martian sky began to shift. The red dust storms that had once swept across the planet lessened, and the air grew denser. Water, drawn from deep underground reservoirs, began to surface. Humanity was not just exploring Mars anymore, they were helping to restore it. Word of the discovery spread beyond Mars. The Global Space Initiative and Helios Industries relayed their findings back to Earth, and soon the governments of the world were faced with an undeniable truth. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. It was then that Zalzir revealed the final piece of their history. The Aethari had not been the only advanced species to walk among the stars. They had once been part of a vast interstellar community, a coalition of civilizations that had shared knowledge, trade, and peace. That alliance had faded with the fall of Mars, but Zalzir believed it could be rekindled. With the help of Aethari technology, a signal was sent into the cosmos, a call to the lost allies of the First World. Months passed with no response. And then one day, the sky above Mars shimmered. A great vessel, unlike any ever seen by human eyes, descended through the thinning atmosphere. Its surface rippled with shifting colors, and as it hovered above the ruins, a voice, clear and resonant, spoke through the communications channels of both Earth and Mars. "You have awakened the past. Now let us shape the future." What followed was a moment of unity unlike any before. Representatives from Earth, scientists, diplomats, and world leaders gathered on Mars alongside the Aethari. And when the first envoys of the greater galactic community stepped forward, humanity took its place among them. A treaty was signed, not just between nations, but between species. The nations of Earth, once divided by borders and politics, stood together in the face of something far greater. The Solar Accord, as it came to be known, solidified Earth's place in the interstellar community. Mars became the bridge, a world once lost, now reborn as the meeting ground of civilizations old and new. Cities rose upon its surface, a blend of human and Aethari architecture, as scholars and explorers from across the stars came to witness the resurgence of a world thought long dead. And as the first human ambassadors stepped beyond the solar system, guided by the wisdom of the Aethari and the knowledge of civilizations far older than their own, one truth became clear. Humanity had taken its first steps into the wider universe, not as conquerors, not as wanderers, but as equals.